Ah, PlayStation. They just can't help themselves. I mean, fresh off the just disastrous, absolutely shambolic state of play in February. Then we had the disastrous PSN outage, which have now just started to pay compensation to PSN users for that. More layoffs have hit PlayStation with a major first party PlayStation support studio called Visual Arts facing job cuts, as well as PlayStation Studios in Malaysia. This from a company that a couple of weeks ago was touting 75 million consoles sold and record breaking revenue, and the announcement of another limited edition DualSense controller, which has even the most diehard Sony PlayStation fans looking at Sony sideways saying, huh? What? This shit's lazy. I mean, look at some of the reactions to The Last of Us limited edition DualSense wireless controller. This looks like some Alibaba underwhelming controller. It amazes me how much they can do such cool work with the Astrobot controller and the 30th anniversary one, and then you just have this. Which then brings us on to today's news topic, which is Sony announcing that they are bringing the PlayStation console rental service that debuted in Japan late last month, I think it was, to coincide with the release of Monster Hunter Wilds to the United Kingdom, my home turf. And yeah, on the PlayStation Direct website, you can choose to lease a PS5, a PS5 Pro, and a bunch of PS5 accessories, all provided to you by a third-party firm called Raylo. So let's talk about this rental service, and then let's talk about why this is so this is so egregiously bad. And people will immediately compare this to the Xbox All Access service which Xbox had. But the big key difference between the two of these things is once you finish paying your term with Xbox, you get to keep the console. With the PlayStation version, no. You can either return the console or you can continue paying to rent the console. And no games or anything included, I might add as well. But anyway, let's get into the details. So, what's available to rent is a base PS5, digital or disc version, PS5 Pro, the PS Portal, PSVR 2. I mean, they've got to somehow get rid of those somehow. And the PS5 DualSense Edge. So, I mean, let's just look at the pricing here, because I don't understand. I can understand maybe if you wanted to check out a PlayStation but you didn't want to commit to it, you might say, okay, you know what, let me rent it for 1 month and then see if I like it or not, and then I can commit to buying it. But the monthly fees of just renting it for 1 month are very expensive. Or you can choose a 12-month term, a 24-month term, or a whopping 36-month term. Now, let's have a look at the prices here, for example. So, for the base PS5 with a disc drive, if you just opt for the monthly rental, say you just want to check it out, it's £23.59 per month on a rolling month contract just to rent this console. There's a market, a very small market, but there's a market of people that might be interested in something like that. Okay, now you say to yourself, okay, maybe I'm interested in a PS5, but I don't have the cash up front, so I'm going to rent it out for an entire year. So that will cost you, for a base PS5 with a disc drive, £17.99 per month over 12 months. If you then want it for cheaper, there is a £12.95 per month option, but you then have to take up a term of paying that for 24 months or 2 years. And if you want an even cheaper version, there is the £11.99 per month, and that is over a 36-month term. Now, there's one thing that all of these rental options have in common, whether you go for the monthly rolling contract or you go for the 12-month lease, the 24-month lease, or the 36-month lease. What they all have in common is you have to hand the console back. On the longer lease terms, you don't get to keep the console. Now, take the 36-month lease option, yeah? That is £11.99 over 36 months. So at the end of that, you end up paying Sony about £431, which is almost the cost of a PlayStation 5 with a disc drive included. And with deals and stuff like that, you may even find that you can get a PlayStation for cheaper. So what would be the incentive of paying that over 36 months only to then hand the console back to Sony? Why wouldn't you just buy a PS5 outright, or wait for a Black Friday sale or another one of Sony's, really aggressive price cuts, where you could have picked up a PS5 last year at some points in the year for around £350 with games as well. and you own it outright. You don't have to pay it over 36 months and then basically hand it back. And I don't think people have factored in all the additional costs that you will incur if if you fall into the camp that you feel that this rental option is, attractive to you. There are additional costs which are obviously not mentioned here, but are blatantly obvious. First one being is none of these bundles or lease options come with any games or any access to platforms or services that will provide you with games for your PlayStation 5. So you don't get access to PlayStation Plus. You don't get any physical games with all it is. So you've rented this console, but the only game you can play on it is Astrobot's Playroom because that comes built in, or download a bunch of demos, from the PlayStation Store. So you've got to then get yourself some games. So you're going to have to sign up to PlayStation Plus to get some games, or you're going to have to go and physically go and buy some PlayStation games or buy some digital games to play on your PlayStation 5. That is an additional cost on top of the rental cost that you're already paying for the hardware. Additionally, on top of that, say you had some friends coming over, you wanted to play some games together, you'll need some additional DualSense controllers, right? Cool. So the rental options give you one DualSense controller. So you're either going to have to go and physically go out and buy some additional controllers, or you can opt for the bundle that gives you a PlayStation 5 and 2 DualSense controllers. Now, the problem with that is the monthly costs then increase to factor in the additional controllers. So if we look at that 36-month option, that then pushes the cost above what it would cost to buy a PlayStation and probably a DualSense controller as well if you were to buy them outright. So this is a very, 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 very small use case for people in the market for a PlayStation 5. I mean, there are various places where you can get a PlayStation bundle that includes games. Sometimes it includes PlayStation Premium Plus as well, for example. I mean, just a quick look at some EE bundles for PlayStation 5. You can get Digital Edition, Disc Edition console. You can get Disc Edition plus 24 months of PS Plus Premium, and you can get PS5 Pro. And you can split the monthly costs over, a period of time. I think it's 12 or 24 months with EE here. And then obviously at the end of the day, you get to keep the console, which is the key thing here. You're not just renting this thing and then having to hand it back at the end. So there are other options out there. But yeah, so if we then move on to the PlayStation 5 Pro here and the bundles you've got on offer here. So if you just want to rent it for a month, just checking it out, as I said, that use case for those people who may want to just check it out, that will cost you £35.59 for a month just to check out the PlayStation 5 Pro. Then if you want to lease it for 12 months, it then goes to £26.99. And if you want to go crazy and lease for 24 months, that then drops the price to £20.99. And then if you're absolutely bonkers and you decide you want to go for the 36-month lease, that drops the price to £18.95 per month, and that's over 36 month period. So at the end of the 36-month period, it would have cost you £682 to rent a PlayStation 5 Pro, which you then have to hand back, and you do not get any games or services included into that, so you have to factor all of that into the costs. And may I just remind you that that's £682 to rent a PlayStation 5 Pro over 36 months, and the recommended retail price of a PlayStation 5 Pro is £699.99. So you can go and get yourself a PlayStation 5 Pro and own it, or you can rent. You can pay essentially the same price and rent one for 3 years and then hand it back. So, I mean, the choice is yours. I mean, as I said, there's other options here. PlayStation VR 2, I mean, those things are dead in the water anyway as it is. So that's up to you if you wanted to rent one. PS Portal. This is actually not too bad, actually. This one I don't think is too bad. $13.99. You pay that for 1 month. You take it home. You check to see if it's useful. Does it work okay with your Wi-Fi? And my understanding is they do offer some sort of game streaming where you don't actually have to own a PlayStation 5 to try out some games. But from my understanding of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you still obviously have to pay some sort of service to access these games online. And so that's the additional cost. Or if you have a PlayStation 5 already and you were thinking of getting a PS Portal, I can see the use case here to try out, say, maybe for 1 month, check to see if the PS Portal works for you. And then if you're like, actually it's not for me, then essentially you stop the payment and, you paid £13.99. So the PS Portal, I can see that as a use case to test it out to see, okay, what's it like sort of thing. But the other stuff on here, base PS5, PS5 Pro, PSVR 2, And then to rent a PS5 controller, like, what is that all about? Very, very bizarre, to be honest. Now, in Japan, I think this has been mildly popular, mostly to do with Monster Hunter Wilds, because the PS5 itself is ludicrously, and I mean ludicrously expensive in Japan. So for those Japanese gamers who don't particularly want to buy a PlayStation 5, but really, really, really want to play Monster Hunter Wilds, I mean, I have a PC to play it, or, you know, just whatever reason they want to play it but they don't have access to play it, or console or PC to play it, this I can see it being a popular option in Japan, which it seems to have been quite popular. But outside of that use case, and outside of maybe using it to test out a PS Portal, it just screams a bit desperate to me. Like, as I said, people will compare it to Xbox and say, oh, well, Xbox does the same thing. The big difference between Xbox and PlayStation is you get to keep the Xbox afterwards. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think Game Pass is included with it as well. So you get access to games at no additional cost. But the PlayStation option here, no games included. You're renting a piece of hardware. You then have to buy an additional controller if you want additional controller. So you're gonna have to go and buy the games or sign up to one of the digital services that will provide you with games, and that again is an additional cost. Yeah, the only thing on this list that makes sense to me is if you wanted to check out a PlayStation Portal to see if it works for you. Does it work with your Wi-Fi? You know, is it usable? But you don't want to pay £199.99 to go and buy one, you know, from your chosen retail store. That makes sense to me. But to rent a base PS5 or PS5 Pro or PSVR 2 or a PS5 DualSense Edge controller makes no sense. And, you know, again, read the fine print there. You know, what is their terms on damages and things like that. You can pay additional money for additional insurance. That again adds to your cost here. You need to check if they're going to run a hard or soft credit check on your account, because if they run a hard one, that has implications. So yeah, that is PlayStation's rental service for the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, PSVR 2, PlayStation 5 DualSense Edge, and the PlayStation Portal device. So yeah, that will do it for today's video. If you like this video, please smash that like button. It really does help out the channel. Leave a comment down below. If you hated this video, please leave a comment down below. If you're a hardcore PlayStation fan and you want to defend Sony, please leave a comment down below. If you are kind of curious and you think this might be a use case for you, leave a comment down below. And subscribe if you are somebody new. As always, I do appreciate you, and I will see you lovely people on the next one. Cheers.